New tonight, we're learning Mayor Mike Duggan could have a challenger if he decides to run for a fourth term. Councilwoman Mary Sheffield filed paperwork establishing the Mary Sheffield for Detroit's Future Committee.
But I want to be in a position to be able to explore other options if I see fit. And so it is an exploratory.
Detroit City Council President Mary Sheffield holds up the petitions she's delivering to the Department of Elections, officially filing to run for mayor.
Together we can, together we will.
Together we can, together we will.
Together we can, together we will.
Together we can, together we will. Together we can, together we will. Together
Welcome to the South End Podcast, live from the campus of Wayne State University. I'm your host, Lauren Myers. I also serve as the Arts and Entertainment Editor. The South End Podcast serves Wayne State and the surrounding communities through honest journalism. And through our efforts, we hope to educate the young men and women shaping the future of a better Detroit. Today, we're sitting down with the campaign manager of someone who has already made history in Detroit and may soon make even more. That's right, Mary Sheffield was originally scheduled to be here, but due to a scheduling conflict, she was unable to make it, but we hope to have her back in the future. We still have someone here who is actively working with her to push her vision forward. Sheffield is a lifelong Detroiter, a Wayne State alum, and she became the youngest person ever elected to Detroit City Council and the youngest woman to serve as its president. She's running to be the next mayor of Detroit. And today we're going to talk about her visions, her journey, and what her campaign means for young Detroiters like us. Please join me in welcoming the campaign manager for mayoral candidate Mary Sheffield, Chris Scott. So Chris, how long have you been a part of Mary's campaign journey?
So I joined the council president in, I believe it was March 4th of this year. So by the time we get to election day, pretty much 8 months, I would have been with her this year.
And what has being in this role taught you?
Detroit politics has changed a lot. Part of the reason why I actually left Detroit after high school was there weren't a lot of opportunities for young folks, and what I've been able to see on this campaign, both with the council president as a candidate and the team that we've built, is a lot of intentionality around getting more young people involved. Coming off of last year when I was coalitions director to VP Harris, I definitely had concerns because I got to see firsthand on the ground what was happening in Detroit and how they just responded to a Black woman. And throughout my career, Black women, when they run for a higher office, sometimes get the most vitriol out of any candidate. And so, but I was pleasantly surprised to see how Detroit has really come around and embraced her. Obviously, she hasn't won yet, but there's been a lot of embracing and a lot of forward thinking that you didn't used to see in our city.
So, as you know, Mary is a graduate from Wayne State University. What do you think her being back on this campus today, what do you think that would be like for her?
Nostalgic, full circle. I mean, really throughout the campaign, she has had a lot of moments to go back where she grew up at, come back to campus, all these different stomping grounds that meant so much. And so we actually talked about it the other day, like, can you imagine going back to Wayne State after you're elected mayor and how that even means? Having a Wayne State graduate, that's also a Black woman coming back. So I think it would be surreal for her. A lot of good nostalgic memories, though, and a full circle moment, definitely.
So when was the first moment you heard she wanted to run for mayor?
So I didn't hear until I got the call to run. Really, I had a lot of friends that were interested in working along for her, but when I came out of high school, we came out of high school around the same time. And so when I was in DC, I was always looking back at Detroit. And when I was in grad school, that was at the same time she was getting elected as the youngest city council person. And so it was one of those things of you weren't exactly sure. But I remember having a lot of conversations nationally with folks of, you know, regardless of what Mayor Duggan does now, I think she's going to run for it. She spent 12 years on council, and it was just one of those things of you've watched this person from afar do the work to get ready for it, and so it's the natural step. You're just waiting for the other shoe to drop.
So Detroit has made progress over the past decade or so, but what main issues are we still facing today that you feel must change?
Well, one, I think we got to make Detroit a lot more affordable. We hear a lot of time on the campaign trail that the cost of living in Detroit is still far too high. We hear about when we're talking about affordable housing, what does that actually mean for every income level? Because a lot of times when people say affordable housing, they automatically go to the lowest bracket. And, you know, one of the things that boosts it or hurts our affordability is how high property taxes are. Another thing that has been a welcome thing to hear, but at the same time it's heartbreaking, is where we need to go with our education system. And when you look at, can you keep families here? Can you keep young people here? There's really a couple of things. Do you have job opportunities? Do they see themselves being able to raise a family in this place? And so investing more in our schools, even though the mayor doesn't control the school system, we have been very intentional on the campaign trail of saying she wants to have a much bigger hand in catalyzing that and measuring, helping drive the outcomes for our youth in the first place. And then last but not least, you always hear about public safety, but at a fever pitch, you have also heard about neighborhood development. Detroiters want to feel whole, especially a lot of them that stayed and survived through the bankruptcy years. They want to see a lot of what I think people are proud of downtown reach their neighborhoods. You shouldn't have to just drive downtown to be able to enjoy the best of what Detroit has to offer.
So I know the mayor doesn't control much of the school systems per se, but the ABCs to PhDs, Student Family Assistance Program, which is the continuum of nonprofit programs supporting families and youth from material health to higher education or careers. If she's elected, how could this plan be put into effect?
So first, when we talk about education, we're looking at two biggest things that face our schools right now. Absenteeism and literacy are the two biggest problems that everybody consistently complains about. For us, making education actual anchor, providing more school wraparound services that you not just have mental health services available, more after school tutoring and literacy. That's not something that can just be given to the students. It's something that also the parents can benefit from. We believe if education is to grow, it has to be a holistic approach, and you got to get everybody involved that touches that. The other big thing is making sure that within 2 miles of every single school, you have after school programming. And that really not only changes, you know, what our students are exposed to and youth are exposed to, it also helps keep them out of trouble when there's more resources available for them to get to within their own neighborhood after school as well. And so we talk about have to do a better job from cradle to career of getting our Detroit young people and our students ready. And so the other part is introducing skilled trades to them at an earlier age in middle school instead of waiting until high school, so they see that as an actual viable career. Making sure that we're adding a supplemental program to the Detroit Promise program so we can get more students into college. When you have the option to have free college, we have to do a better job of not only promoting that, but also making sure that it's accessible to the students that should be able to take part.
So would you compare it to something like the Detroit Promise? Has it been successful in your eyes?
We've heard a lot of people like Detroit Promise, and they want to see it expanded. They feel like still it's sometimes too hard to get into. The other thing, it's not just about getting them in there, it's making sure that they stay in it once they get into the Detroit Promise program. But we've heard a lot of good reviews in every single one of the 7 districts in this city.
There's a point I want to get to here for a moment. I heard it mentioned in a recent interview Mary did on Way Up with Angela Yee. And I think it's important that we expand upon that for young Detroit voters. There are so many misconceptions that Detroit is not safe. And she has said she wants Detroit to be looked at in a different light, not compared to cities like New York or Chicago. Are there ways she plans on stopping the misconceptions that are placed on this city, and what may that be?
Well, what we saw already, you look at the NFL draft come in here and how many people shifted like, oh, I didn't know Detroit was that dope. I didn't know you could go down and do this, because for so many years, especially after bankruptcy, there was only one picture. The mayor, while they run the entire city government, they're also the biggest advocate for our city. They have to be the biggest cheerleader, the biggest marketing person for this city. And so one of the things that we see is as we're able to bring more events like that, you have the Final Four come in here, you have a WNBA team returning again. As you start to have those things where people from the outside can see Detroit in that light, you start to see the perception change. But then it's what happens for actual Detroiters. While statistically we've gone down in crime, we still hear far too many people say they don't feel safe. And at the end of the day, if the perception is that you don't feel safe, then we're not going further enough with that. And part of what we believe that will solve that perception is also having more prevention focus. And so one of the things that she's pledged to do is make the first ever Office of Gun Violence Prevention in our city's history in the mayor's office. But also what we've gotten a lot of feedback from the community and our own thoughts on it is having police officers in the community, not in a way to over police, but just so that community can get to know them. Back in the day, you used to see like the beat cop just walking around the neighborhood. The first time somebody sees a cop shouldn't be if the cop is responding to a crisis in the first place.
A lot of politicians claim to be connected to the communities in which they're running to serve, but it doesn't always show. Many staples of Detroit, like our artists, community activists, have shouted Mary out for showing up for the city way before she was city council president, before she was a mayoral candidate. How important is it for her to really keep her boots on the ground, and what does it mean for her to be entwined with the culture here?
So I think everything, when you think Council President Mary Sheffield, you have to start with grassroots organizing. She loves to be in the community. In my 13 years working in politics, I have not had a candidate knock more doors personally than I've seen her do. And like a lot of those artists says, she does not show up just for the photo op. She shows up for a lot of the things that's not going to get the television coverage that you don't see in the newspaper article. But those are also the things about being able to reach the people that need to be reached and making them feel like you actually care. Detroit is a big place of we don't like inauthentic people. And if the culture is not feeling you, you're going to know resoundingly that they're not feeling you. But I do think she is very grounded in both her faith and her value system. And so I think that's something that when she becomes mayor, I think a lot of people will get to know that side of her a whole lot more than they necessarily saw on city council.
Speaking about staples in the community and success, we can't forget to recognize 51% of the primary election, which is the election that decides the 2 candidates who will run for mayor, went to Mary. So far this election season, she has been first in leading the polls for some time. Most of the primary candidates who were running alongside her have now decided to endorse her. How is she planning on approaching this election with already having so much approval?
Well, for us, we don't take our foot off the gas. When I got here in March and we sat down and we talked about really the campaign that we wanted to run all the way through the primary, there were really two components. We wanted it to be grounded like the Obama campaigns of old that really focus on grassroots direct voter contact, and also running a campaign that was building for something in the future to build a movement of people that actually want to engage in local elections, which we haven't seen a lot. We felt like we got a good start in the primary, but it still obviously wasn't good enough when you look at voter contact, but it's not for trying. So when we went to the general, there's not a switching strategy, but it's more so, do you press your advantage? Do you continue to go out further because you have the money to talk to people that usually would never even get touched in an election like that? And let's go and see how many people we can engage overall. What I will say is, in the time that I've been here, we have attempted to contact over 400,000 voters in the city of Detroit. And that's typically unheard of in a mayor election. You would see that on the statewide. You would definitely expect that in the presidential. But when you talk about trying to transform a landscape, it starts with that.
Anybody that takes a look at Mary's work and some of the principles she stands on, it's pretty prevalent that she stood true on fighting for affordable housing. And taking a look at young Detroiters specifically, nearly 40% of Detroit young adults still live at home and are not able to live independently, compared to the national average, which is about 32%. When thinking about affordable housing in Detroit, what steps would need to be taken for young Detroit adults to begin living independently?
So long-term structural property tax reform, we got to lower our property taxes. It not only affects home ownership, but it also affects businesses that are trying to move and develop in Detroit. Additionally, putting more people just on a pathway to home ownership in the first place. And so, again, part of what helps with that is when you bring more higher paying jobs as well. I think a lot of young people, going back to, again, why I left, you don't have the same opportunities. What you can make in sometimes a DC, a Chicago, a Houston, for so long we didn't have that here. I think a lot of that has changed, especially under council president's leadership on the city council. But we have to get better in bringing that in right now as well. I do want to point to actually a piece of legislation. She had the right to counsel legislation, which really protected renters from being evicted, because a lot of times we see, especially coming out of COVID, most people that are renting are one bad month away from having their rent in jeopardy, whether or not they're a regular middle class person, whether or not they're a senior, whether or not they're a college student. We see that a lot. And so part of, again, even being able to put people on pathway to home ownership is protecting them from getting evicted in the first place as well. So there's a lot we got to do with affordable housing. There is going to have to be a lot of support from both our corporate partners and our foundations as well to, find some supplemental needs in the in-between, because we don't have that ARPA money anymore from the presidency and from the federal government. But we do feel confident that there are enough partners that see the value in affordable housing that we can start making some real return and instantly also hopefully helping keep our young folks here as well.
Being the mayor of the city comes with handling a lot of funds. When we talk about some of the funds that Detroit was given, that brings us to the American Rescue Plan Act. It was a $1.9 trillion stimulus bill signed in 2021 to provide economic and public health during the COVID-19 pandemic. Detroit was granted $1 billion. However, it runs out in 2026. How does she plan to maintain the progress after the ARPA fund runs out, and do you think it will affect Detroiters?
I think you Detroiters should want nobody else outside of the council president, who has been a leader in helping us get back from bankruptcy in the first place. I mean, they've had 11 consecutive balanced budget. You've seen population growth in consecutive years that we weren't having, which when you first look at how do we have more money, you got to get more people to also start moving here and staying here in the first place. But I think because of what was able to get done when that stimulus check was here, again, a lot of corporate and foundational partners don't want to see that progress stop either, and are already ready to start day one if we're successful in saying, hey, let's look at how we make sure that important programs that are necessary to the community aren't going away. At the end of the day, we do have to, and I know it's a higher end word in talking about diversifying revenue, but we have to find different ways to bring more money to Detroit at the end of the day. We have to be able to attract the jobs of tomorrow, attract more tech jobs, attract more innovation jobs. But one of the other things that we believe is getting back to some of our roots in Detroit, continuing to innovate when it comes to manufacturing, being able to grow our creative economy, which we really haven't seen a mayor focus on that, and getting back to giving a boost to our entertainment and arts and culture here. And our number one export, you go around the country, everybody talks about the culture that comes out of Detroit. So many other cities, Atlanta, Chicago, San Francisco, they capitalize on those things. And so those are some of the things that we expect to be able to do that will also start bringing more revenue. And the last thing I will say is what we've looked at is under Governor Whitmer, she established a chief growth officer for the state of Michigan. Their whole job was literally to grow the population and continue to find more revenue to bring in. She wants to bring in the first ever chief growth officer for the city of Detroit. So we have somebody also, in addition, that is their sole purpose and job.
Taking a wider look, she's disagreed. City Council President Mary Sheffield has disagreed with current President Trump's decisions, in particular, National Guard deployment. We saw what it did after the 1967 riots, and he's also made campaign comments about Detroit. How will Mary strengthen ties to the White House for funding or for support?
So what the council president always says is that even if she has a different philosophy, her first job as mayor is to advocate for Detroit, no matter what side of the aisle they go on. That's not just in the White House, that's in Lansing as well. And so you have to be able to look and see, are there any common grounds, even if you have strong philosophical differences, oftentimes there are things that are still common ground that you can look for, and that's something that she is always going to advocate for. But her first job outside of advocating for more resources coming to Detroit is also making sure that she is the first line of defense and protecting Detroiters as well, should they come under attack from this current administration.
Detroit has some of the highest car insurance rates in the country. Young adults typically are starting to buy their first cars. High insurance rates can create some barriers for individuals. They may have to sacrifice reliability, comfort, or decide not to get one at all. What steps can she, as the potential next mayor, take to decrease car insurance rates or provide support for young adults purchasing their first cars?
A lot of that is going to start with advocating in the state legislature and getting some of the laws that are state laws changed around, just how insurance is done overall. But I think when it comes to young folks, it's not just talking about cars. We're also looking at housing. Can we find ways to incentivize young people staying here and offer assistance? Now, again, a big part of that is also finding additional funding so you can fund those things. But we have heard of both partners that would be very interested in finding ways to incentivize keeping our youth here. We see a lot of other states do it. Yeah.
How will we find that extra funding for it to be done?
So again, that's a multitude of ways. Sometimes it's private and public partnerships can put a lot of money in that space. You never necessarily like to see attacks, but we can look at what it was done in Columbus, where they have a half-penny sales tax that generates multi-millions to their city budget every year. And again, continue to grow our population every year. I think we have the ability to also have a homecoming campaign. There are a lot of people around that are from Detroit that are either elsewhere in the country or elsewhere in the state that also are paying attention to this race, that have an interest in coming back home. We have to show them that there's the space for it to bring them back home and get them to invest in helping take us to that next level as well.
For a lot of people, college or secondary school isn't the only way to success. However, it is the most traditional. After graduation, many Detroiters struggle to find jobs, as you said. What are her plans to improve the job market accessibility?
So it starts with attracting more jobs. Next steps, it's looking at, are we making sure that when young people are coming out, they're fully prepared to work the jobs that also we're trying to attract here, or the existing jobs that we have brought here. So we have to continue to do workforce development as well when it comes to helping with those things. Thank you. Can you repeat the last part? Because I want to make sure I fully answered it for you too.
What are her plans to improve job market accessibility?
And the other thing, it would be expanding on our existing industries. We have a phenomenal healthcare system that we should be getting a lot more young people involved in, but also, again, for so long, when we're looking at different industries, so many young people are used to only a few areas within that industry that they can work. And so we have to do a better job of educating on everything that's to offer. And again, college is not for everybody. Investing a whole lot more into our skilled trades and making sure that young people understand you can have a very good career. The same way back in the day, so many people coming out of high school would skip going to college to go work at Ford or GM and Chrysler. We have to just do a better job on educating what are true pathways to careers and being able to have a real living and being able to have a high quality of life right here in Detroit.
With small business grants being given, is it a possibility to offer incentives for Detroit businesses to hire locally or even Detroit educated students?
Absolutely. So I'm glad you bring up small business, because one of the things that the council president has said since the primary is that she wants to make Detroit the #1 place to start and grow a small business. Emphasis on especially grow and making sure a business stays sustainable. This is a conversation that actually came up during our Musicians for Mary conversation, and we were talking about how do you make everybody interconnected to be able to benefit. And so the concept was, can we incentivize businesses who open their doors and allow content to be shot at their business? That's extra promotion for that business. That gives a space for the artists or musicians to be able to do what they need to do. That should be no different when we're talking about young people as well, no matter what business that they are. She has done a lot of work already on city council, especially when it comes to labor rights and having industry standards and pushing corporations to make sure not only are we hiring Detroiters, but are we also giving Detroiters a good wage as well. That is something that you're going to see her expound a lot more on as mayor when she is able to really drive that conversation there.
What are your views on young voter turnout, ages under 30? Why is it so poor, and what can be done to change that?
So the interesting thing is, I believe I was looking at something, 2024, Michigan actually still ranked 3rd in the US when it came to young people voter turnout. And so it's not that we don't have young voters turn out in Michigan, we just don't have young people participate in our local elections. I think part of that is looking at what candidates do we provide and how are we having a conversation when we're on the campaign trail. I think just like anybody, A lot of young folks are turned off from divisive rhetoric and, the mudslinging back and forth, and they want to hear you actually talk to the issues that affects them and feel like you're really talking to them, not talking at them. And so I think we have to do a better job of year-round civic engagement to start to change how young people feel like they can participate in local elections. And I think in general, in Detroit, again, we have this problem not just with young people, but a lot of people don't vote in their municipal year elections. They'll vote for the president, they'll vote for the governor, but when it comes to that local that really controls their everyday life, there's a disconnect. And I think a lot of that has been from perception of feeling like city government hasn't worked for people for so long. And what I would say is some of the things that she is looking to change that hopefully help with some of those things is getting back to a model that happened during the Coleman Young era, where you had neighborhood city halls. That way, government was in your neighborhood. You didn't have to go downtown to find resources or get your questions answered, but they were actually right there more. That's part of the thing. And then the other thing is she is very intentional around having year-round civic engagement, voter education on why it's just important to not only vote, but also here's the branches of government, here's how it works. Because also what we see in a lot of cities beyond the candidates, when people understand the differences in government, they're also a lot more willing to engage. And the last thing I will say in this is that we have talked about what it would look like to possibly make Election Day a holiday in the city of Detroit to also try to get more people involved in voting.
What impact does she hope to leave on the city, and what impact would you say the city has already left on her?
I mean, I think so much of who she is today has been shaped by the city. It has been shaped by the neighborhoods that she has been in, and it's also been shaped by her own family legacy. I don't think a lot of people realize her family has been in the city for over 100 years. Her great-grandfather came up here during the Great Migration. Her grandfather was one of the labor pioneers within this city in civil rights activism. Same thing for her father, and even her mother, who was a nurse. She actually taught nursing as well. And so her legacy is really around community engagement, grassroots organizing. But what I love about her is, she's the same person that loves the little what up dolls, has the same memories of being at the Giant Slide. She was involved in Mosaic Youth Theater. All of those things helped shape her into the person and the public servant that she is today. When she talks about leaving a legacy as mayor, are people better off when she leaves than when she came in? Have we done more to actually make Detroit accessible to all Detroiters? Do every corner of the city, do they feel like they've had a chance to touch recovery? When we talk about what her first 4 years could look like, she wants to be judged on how she continues to develop the neighborhoods. That's been her bread and butter issue that she ran on in the first place, the city council. And so she does not want to shy away from that. She knows it's going to take a while to get everywhere, but do people feel like you're making a progress to actually reach them? Can they see year to year their life getting better, or a pathway in their future to continue to get better here?
With that being said, is there anything else you would want the audience to know about Mary Sheffield and what she would do if she was elected mayor?
I would just say to the audience, this is a very historic election. Detroit, in 324 years, we have never had a woman mayor, let alone a Black woman. Council President Mary Sheffield would not only be the first woman, the first Black woman, she'd also be the first millennial. But what we always say is, while her making history is great, vote for her because she is the most prepared and she is the most qualified to do the job. Vote for her because no matter whether or not you lived in her district, she still advocated for you with the over 20 pieces of legislation that she did with the People's Bill. Vote for Mary Sheffield because you want to have a Detroiter that has proven fighting on the front lines even when it wasn't popular. What I will leave you with is you will know that you always have an advocate with her. Even if she can't get something done, you will see that she fought for those things that are most valuable to Detroiters. And I think that is what everybody should aspire to want in our politicians, but really having a true public servant that is gonna fight whether or not they win or lose because it's the right thing to do.
One last question. If she had to use 3 words to describe the city of Detroit, what would it be and why?
Resilient, passionate, and beautiful.
Well, Chris, I want to thank you for coming on and having this conversation with me and inspiring young Detroiters about what it is that Mary Sheffield wants to do as the next mayor of the city of Detroit if she's elected.
Thanks for having me.
This has been a very special episode, and let's keep the conversation going about Detroit's future and how the mayoral candidates plan to make that change. For those of you listening, remember, elections aren't just about the candidates, they're about us as well. The people who show up to the polls to vote, how we stay engaged, and how we hold our leaders accountable, it matters. In the next episode, my co-host Johnathan interviews Reverend Solomon Kinlock Jr. This has been the South End Podcast. I'm your host, Lauren Myers.